long-term rental language. Corey?
Okay, so we're discussing this just because we've been discussing short-term rental and realized that, we don't have a definition for long-term rental in our code, and long-term rental is not defined in the land uses allowed table, which, we get a lot of, or when we get business licenses to review for long-term rentals, that we go to the land use table to see which zones allows it, and currently it doesn't show any zones where it would be allowed or not allowed. So we just want to correct that to put it into the code. So tonight we're just going to discuss possible definitions, the language around long-term rental, if we want to use that terminology, long-term rental, or some other terminology, and then where in the land use table we want it to be allowed.
Okay. First I'll ask commissioners if they have any comments or thoughts on this topic.
Nothing yet.
Well, it seems to me we have a definition for short term, and that says anything under 30 days, which would imply that everything over 30 days would be long term, but we don't have it saying that anywhere, correct? Which to me seems like that's fine, but if administration is, I don't want to say an issue, but if the administration is running into a particular spot where they're having to write it down saying a long term is okay here or is not, but there's no definition for it, it kind of seems to me like we might need a definition for it. Is that correct? Would that make it easier for paperwork and administration? Yeah. Okay. Then, if it's going to help out the administration and there isn't one now, I don't see a problem. And we have one for short term. I don't see a problem having one for long term. Anybody else comment with that?
I'm good with that. Makes sense.
Yeah, my only thought too is, because we do have definitions for the different types of dwellings.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's why, long-term rental has just never been defined, is because it's technically a type of dwelling.
Well, yeah, I understand why they didn't put it there, because you already have the short term saying what short term is, and if you're not short term, you're long term. So, but if you're running into an issue kind of wanting it clarified for administration purposes, it seems like it probably should be clarified.
Yeah, so then determining then, do we want to use that terminology, long-term rental, and define that as longer than 30 days, or rental property, or
since we have short-term rental saying anything less than 30 days, to me it seems like anything above 30 days would be a long-term rental.
right?
Just kind of makes sense.
31 days is long term.
Yeah.
30 is short.
And public?
Well, actually, it's 30 days and up.
30
Yeah.
days up. Okay.
30 is the mark.
Yeah, it's if you need to get a P.O. box for your mail, and they say if you're gone for more than 30 days, you need to change your address. Sorry, I'm a late bloomer.
We were just looking at, do we need a long-term rental term? We have a short-term one, anything under 30 days, and administration mentioned that there's particular paperwork areas where they file and we don't have a definition for it. So we're
Yeah.
deciding whether, I said if we have a short-term one, we probably should
You should have a long-term, yeah.
Yeah.
And like I said, the post office says that if you are somewhere for 30 or more days, you have to change your address, unless you're just like, some people come here and they get a P.O. box just for the summer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can rentals, seems like just kind of thinking here, but can rentals be both short-term and long-term? Like, renting for the summer, short-term, and then renting out for the winter, long-term, paperwork change? How does that, is that relevant right now? Maybe not.
They would need two different business licenses.
Okay. So maybe that might
Yeah, I
help.
think if you need a lease, if you're legally obligated to have a lease, it should be long-term.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're not
exactly.
required to have a lease if it's
Yeah.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I only say that because I see things from a legal aspect because I have my real estate license. So I had to take Alaska landlord tenant laws, and I know if you need a lease, then I would say that has to be long-term.
So it sounds like we need a definition for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be helpful.
Do you guys want to come up with a definition, or do we want to kind of scavenge one out of some of the examples you gave us, or how would you like to proceed with that?
Yeah, we can use some of these examples, or, I mean, what you guys have brought up, anything 30 days or longer
I like,
seems appropriate.
yeah, I like the one example Boulder has here, but I do think that it should say 30 or over, because we have short-term saying under 30. It just kind of makes it, put that in there and it's clear. Oh, I'm over 30 days. I'm going to do a long-term.
Right. Okay, so taking parts of maybe the Boulder definition, but adding in the 30 days or longer part too.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay.
Is there any other criteria besides the amount of time to differentiate between short-term and long-term? Probably not, right? Just
Not
curious.
that I know of.
Right. That's the key factor, obviously.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
Public, do you have any comments on this?
Did you have time to read my comments that I sent today through the clerk?
Yeah.
I did not. I've been
I saw it.
crazy
I saw it,
at
yeah.
work.
I did.
But I have them right here, so I'll
Right.
pick them out, yeah.
So what I was suggesting, the differences, the main differences between short-term rental and long-term rental are: one, the length of the rental. Short-term is less than 30 consecutive days, and I think consecutive is an important word.
Yeah, it's good.
Long-term is over 30 consecutive days, and where the use is allowed. Short-term rentals aren't allowed everywhere, but we do have dormitories that are rented for, like the Sea Life Center in the summer, they rent dormitories. So that could be expanded in bunkhouses in the winter. We expanded that to allow long-term rentals in bunkhouses. That might provide some winter lodging for people. So where the use is allowed, we need to expand the use for long-term rentals to dormitories, bunkhouses, and even hotels and motels sometimes rent rooms for long-term. So that would be a difference to consider between short-term and long-term, where use is allowed. And the name of the renter is a difference. Guest is used for short-term rental, and a tenant or lessee is used for long-term rentals. And those are not huge changes, but they're really significant. And so patterning after the definition for short-term rental, which is currently going to council for approval, it's up for approval on the 28th. Patterning the language after that would be, and I'd like to say rental short-term, so they appear together, and then rental long-term in the definitions. So rental long-term would be a dwelling unit or portion thereof that is offered or provided to a tenant for compensation for a period of 30 consecutive days or more. Long-term rentals may be in individual rooms in single-family houses, units in apartments, condominiums, townhouses, multifamily dwellings, dormitories, bunkhouses, hotels, and motels. And that just seems to cover it and handle our sewer situation.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if I'm totally sold on hotels and motels where people just live in them forever, because it doesn't seem like a very good place for people to live long-term. But I like everything else.
But that's happening already. Like
Yeah, you have
construction
people-
workers come
Yeah,
down.
that's true.
And they,
Yeah.
so it's happening already, we might as well.
Might as well put a name on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do
you're
have people that
correct.
stay for like 6 months in a hotel.
Yeah. Okay.
It's market driven.
Yeah.
Bunkhouse and dormitories, that seems to make sense to open up more
Yeah.
spots for people to live in the winter. Sorry.
And then again, the land use table is on starting page 24. So I was gonna, if we wanna take a look at that real quick.
So we'd be looking at where,
Yeah, and I would look at where dwellings are allowed currently, because, you know, any dwelling, it sounds like pretty much any dwelling can be used as a long-term rental. So,
the only thing I
and,
can, the only one I can think about that I don't, we talked earlier, if I remember, about not really having a lot of people living in industrial zones for long term, if I remember correctly. Did we go over that in a couple work sessions prior?
yeah, so, yeah, that has been, but in industrial, an apartment in a commercial building is allowed outright in industrial, and studio apartments allowed with a conditional use permit. And a bunkhouse is allowed in industrial.
Bunkhouse is allowed in industrial.
Yeah.
Outside of city limits, or on the other side of the river.
So it looks like there's some type of dwelling allowed in every zoning district except for park.
Well,
But, except, I mean, there's,
well, if there's a dwelling allowed in pretty much everything the way we have it, except for park, and it seems to be working fairly well, could we just overlay the long term onto that? So in some places, long terms are outright, some places, like straight downtown, or you said in Vista Rail, would be conditional use. On the form. Just kind of overlay it on. the
so if
definition.
here, so for example, I guess, since the bunkhouse, that would make sense if the type of dwelling in that area also required a conditional use permit.
Yeah. Like it would just go along with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if that, yeah, I could only see that being applicable in the industrial zone probably, but
What about the park again?
It says we don't have, yeah, that's the only one, that's the only,
What about camping in a park?
it's not a dwelling,
Is it not,
Temporary.
it's just temporary.
it's not called a rental at all?
No.
Okay.
Well, it's not, yeah, it's not a dwelling. When you rent, when people rent a camping spot down in a campgrounds, it's different, it's not particularly. Well, you have to ask.
I mean, yeah, I guess it depends on how we define long-term rentals, but because doesn't the Sea Life Center have some of their employees camp for the summer down by the?
So I was thinking,
It's a parking lot,
Is there a,
and and they're in RVs, if I remember correctly. Don't quote me, but I think you are correct on that.
Yeah. So just, I mean,
aren't they
but
living
camping is allowed in parks.
Yeah.
And that's the use that it would be classified under, so I don't know.
okay.
Carol?
Well, camping is quite different should be different from dwelling. So we have a whole campground code, and you're supposed to move every 14 days to another campground, and it's covered under a totally different section. But a dwelling is defined in our code as structure with foundation, should have, whatever. It's a place where people live permanently, subject to conditions. And our employee campgrounds that are annexes is a really gray area to me. I don't think we should be doing that, but we are. But it's a little different. So we're talking about an actual dwelling for lodging to be allowed for people to rent as well.
So in our definition, then we should make that clear that it's a a dwelling by our definition in code for dwelling.
Yeah,
And then that would exclude parks, camping
Yes.
as long-term rentals.
yeah, definitely.
Any form of camping, whatever it is. Yeah.
Carol?
So just like our short-term rental starts out a dwelling unit, unfortunately around, so does my suggested long-term rental a dwelling unit, unfortunately. So it's real clear, it's not.
Yeah.
I know.
I like that definition that you came up with. I think that maybe get Cory or can get that hammered out like that. That
Yeah.
seems to cover all the bases that we were talking about. So now the land table. Did we? Just want to turn this switch. I think that sounds fun. The feedback up for some reason, but I don't know.
It's yourself that's done it, right?
Don't think so. You're right.
There we go.
There it goes.
I would say, even though it says don't adjust, I think it's been bumped. There's definitely a lot of feedback there.
So we have the locations that we.
Yeah, so
Or-
we've determined all the locations except for park,
Yeah.
and then,
If it says, if the dwelling apartment is allowed outright, then long-term renters should be allowed outright in that. But if, say,
Right.
it's apartments, studios, and a zoning that's conditional use permit, then the long-term should be conditional use permit with it. Should be hand in hand,
yeah,
that's my opinion.
that makes sense.
I think it makes it easy too, just kind of blankets over everything.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any problems with that?
Sounds good.
Carol?
So are we going to exclude dwelling group homes that we place would want to?
Say that again?
Group homes? I would exclude that, you don't want to.
Yeah, correct. That one can't,
Short-term
that needs to be
or long-term.
excluded. Yeah, because a group home's not a, yeah, so blanket except for the group home section. And then, are you happy with that, Courtney? Does that cover everything for that section?
Yep.
Okay. So if we've covered that section, then item 2 is lot coverage and size requirements. And I believe Courtney has go over that.
Yeah,
some
so-
more, right?
The first piece of this is just going over the lot coverage percentages. So in our, let's see, in the development requirements table, which is on page 37, you'll see there's a variety of requirements for development requirements. And these include the setbacks, building height, and then also the very last one, which is on page 38, is the maximum lot coverage. So what this means is the footprint of the house can only cover this percent of the lot. So in an RR rural residential, only 30% of the lot can be covered by by structures, and then it goes through all the different zones. So we're just bringing this up as a question to be discussed. There's not necessarily a particular situation, but just looking at the downtown area primarily, since the downtown area is the only area that really has these 3,000 square foot lots. Just wanting you to consider if it would be appropriate in some neighborhoods or areas to raise that percent coverage, or even make it lower potentially too. But if we think it's still appropriate for our needs and the conditions of these neighborhoods.
Okay. First I'll ask commissioners, does anybody have comments on this before I bring it to public?
I would be curious to hear like pros and cons on both, you know? I think there's some ideas, but I think others have maybe some. What's the advantage to bringing that coverage up where you could go from 30% to 50% or whatever, and what's the disadvantage? Or the advantage from lowering it, you said?
Yeah, I don't think 30% is a lot at all.
Seems low.
Yeah, that seems really low.
Well, I would be reluctant to raise it because everything we have now is based off of it, and everybody seems to like how it's running.
Yeah.
And we already have particular areas where multiplexes, even though they're built to code with the particular square footage that they're allowed that we implement right now, they're already don't have enough parking, don't have enough storage, don't have enough green space. In fact, some of them don't even abide by the green space they're supposed to have. They just use it for parking and gravel it, which means they don't have enough parking.
Yeah.
So I'd be reluctant to raise it because
If they're not following it now,
They're not following it now.
If you up it, then
they up it.
yeah.
But more importantly, because some are following it, I don't want to say everybody's not following it, but more importantly, I don't think everybody here wants to become denser.
Yeah.
You know, we have views, we have areas, we have spaces, and during the summer, those are already tight. I mean, if we up this, where's parking gonna go? You know, if we let more people make a bigger home and make a little more money and push the parking onto the street, you've seen the summertime,
Yeah.
there's not even enough space for people sometimes. So I'd be reluctant to change it just based on it's working and everybody seems to be happy with the density except for a few. But I don't want to be tighter.
Yeah.
The only,
I just look at it like you said, you can only put a structure on 30% of your property. So if I buy an acre of land, I can only put a house on 30%,
Right.
or put structures on 30%.
Yeah, if it's in rural residential, single family would
I get it,
be-
yeah, if you want to build bigger, then
Yeah.
go outside of city limits. And
and also think about how many 1 acre lots are in city
Yeah,
limits. So we're talking more about
smaller
small
lots, yeah.
which when you take up, if you want to move from 30 to 50%, that's a huge deal.
Yeah.
When you're on an acre lot, it's really not, it
Yeah,
doesn't seem as, you still have lots of land.
Yeah.
But if you're only on a 6,000 or 9,000 square foot lot, if you want to do a 9,000 square foot lot with a 3 or 4plex on it, if you're going to increase that, then that's going to make parking an issue, or even moving around on that lot. Getting dumpsters in, getting snow out, that just pushes all of the extras.
yeah, I totally
onto the
agree, yeah.
streets and onto everybody else's area. And everything seems fairly nice as it is right now.
As it is, yeah.
The only thing I could see doing is, and I'd like to, and I think it's a different topic, but letting people build smaller homes if they're built to code with foundations. And I think that's a different topic that should be brought up at some point.
Well, they can already do that,
Again,
as long as they meet the
okay, well,
As
then
long as it has a foundation.
foundation requirements. Yeah, there's
Okay.
not
I don't
a minimum size of a building, they just have to meet building
That's what I was
code.
looking forward to see if I couldn't find anything with the
Okay.
minimum.
I know we mentioned it here, talking about lowering, and I just want to make sure that.
Are these percentages, do we think, preventing, say, some empty lots in town from being built because they needed more space? And could that be an advantage to be able to green light some building projects by changing these percentages? I don't know,
Well, the percentages allow something to be built everywhere.
but, right.
The only thing you're doing is preventing somebody from making a little extra money by building something bigger.
Well, like a multiplex, on an empty lot, right?
If you could get a 3, everybody always wants to push it for a little more. I mean, but think about if it's a 3 fits there, and we're like, well, we could put 4, but like I said, where's all the rest of the stuff gonna go?
And you could go up, right?
No, no,
'Cause
no, the
that-
stuff that goes on the ground around it, where the
Yeah.
people's stuff gonna go. It ends up bleeding out onto the streets, which already have an issue. Very rarely does somebody come here with just one vehicle. And then you live here and they want, well, you know what, I just got a boat.
Yep.
You know, you just got a boat in your
Yeah.
driveway. So now those parking spots move onto the streets.
Well, that boat has been there,
I'm
let's just be fair.
I'm not,
We just took over the boat, that's been there.
I'm not trying to, sorry, I'm not trying to come at you for.
But no,
owning a boat. I own a
it
boat.
makes a lot of sense, but then it's like, what if I want an RV, and then how you're saying it just spills out into the street?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're starting to already have issues, I think, with summertime and spilling onto streets. Now we're snow removal, it's working.
Oh yeah, I know.
Right now.
People park in front of our thing.
I know.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
And, you know, we already have zonings that are full lot coverage that don't require parking, and all that parking goes on the street. So I'd be reluctant to change any of that and add to those problems, which,
Yeah, we
I
got
think
enough,
you're starting
we got
to-
enough problems already, let's not try to bring more in.
Try to have more. Yeah.
yes.
Let's
yeah.
get those first ones taken care of before we get too many on top of us.
It's working really nice right now.
What is the measure of that? I probably agree, but why is it working, or how do we know that?
Why do we know it's working?
Yeah,
Well, I mean, I guess we do have problems with parking, so it's not technically working, but adding
It's
to
not
that
a
problem
mess.
isn't gonna make it better.
right.
The only way to make it better, I guess,
That's just kind of your assessment from, you know, a lot of different angles, gathering information from the public, it's working.
yeah.
Okay, yeah,
I haven't heard I haven't heard anybody say,
right,
I want houses closer to me.
Right,
I
right.
want more people living near me. If anything, I hear people complaining about space.
if it wasn't working, you'd hear more.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what you're going by.
that's what I'm going.
Cool.
Yeah.
What about these, 300 square foot lot R1? Do we have one of those anywhere in this? Is that a real
So if you look
thing?
at the zoning map,
Just next one down.
next
Yeah.
page, on the left side there, you'll see a few of those 3,000 square foot lots in R1.
Oh, the tiny, single lots?
Yeah,
Wait,
the-
we have some of those inside of city limits, you're saying?
30 by 100s?
Okay.
Yeah, I have a
And
house on
down-
30 by 100.
Okay.
so then, yeah,
And
so
then
those
there's-
lots, then
those are
we
R1.
have a 900 square foot.
Because, yeah, I mean, I could see this argument from the standpoint of, I don't know anybody who's getting a house built that's under 1,500 square foot these days, since developers won't build them, is what I hear.
Well, you can build a house on a 30 by 100. I own one on it, but it's old. But there is one down the street from me that was built, a brand new home. A lady built a lovely small home on a 30 by 100.
In
Has a
the
front yard,
R-
has a
in
backyard.
R1?
Yep. Pardon me?
In R1?
Yes.
Do you know if she was able to get a conventional, like, builder and everything for
She
that?
didn't build it herself, so it was contracted who built it. It's a lots of bungalow style homes are small. I think it's a 1 bedroom. I mean, it's not anything fancy.
Right.
We have don't we have 2 bungalows going on in single lots? They're not in R1, but they're both going on single lots down by the post office, aren't they?
Oh, yeah, those.
Yeah, it's not R1, but they're still gonna go on a 30 by 100, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So, and those are conventional.
And they're gonna be, what, just 900 square feet, you think?
It came through a couple months ago. I don't remember what
Yeah, I haven't
it was.
scripted, but they were gonna be very small,
Yeah, they're small.
I doubt.
They'll be
For
under
long
1,500?
Yeah, but starter homes, it's fantastic for a couple that, you know, is just starting out, get a small house, they can afford it. They'll upgrade later when they start to have family or make more money, whichever one comes around. Public?
I heard that one of those lots was advertised for $125,000. So I disagree that these are
Well,
for singles,
I guess what I just mean is a small home typically
It's
costs
easier
less
for them
than
to
a
keep
big
it clean.
home. Anyway, but getting back to it,
Yeah.
do we see a
Prices,
reason to change this.
I kind of agree with you now that you've said that.
I don't think so.
My opinion is to keep it like it is.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I think the only issues would be either if we want to decrease the percentage actually in some areas, and then if there were specific situations of these 3,000 square feet lots in R1 that were limiting someone from developing, that we could then consider this again with a more specific example, but
We had a more
Right now.
specific, yeah.
right now, like you said, it is working and there aren't lots of complaints, so.
It's working and I just want to,
Do we know how many of these there are? Like, how much of this is a problem or potential problem or not a problem at all? Or is it just like, are we talking about like one lot? Or are we talking about like dozens? I don't even, I don't quite, like, I look at it this, I don't quite understand, like,
Like how many 3,000
yeah,
square
like
foot
there's a
lots
couple
are in
examples,
R1?
right? But how many are, do we know how many we're talking about? Like, at all? Or-
I mean, they're only in the downtown area, and it's only that portion there that's zoned
that-
R1,
yeah,
so it
okay.
would only be, I don't know, maybe 30,
with that, because a lot of them are built on already.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No, I'm just thinking of, yeah, like, is, like, I don't know if it's a problem, but, you know, if we see this repeated pattern that, oh yeah, these lots aren't being developed at all because, I don't know, they all have this something in common, but maybe we should act on it, but I don't think I have enough data to make that assessment.
yeah, do we think these small lot owners are waiting for this to increase? You know, they'd probably come and say something, and then, you know, if you went to 50, oh, bunch built because of that move, you know, that's what we're trying to determine, I guess. Right?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to
Yeah,
understand,
I'm
yeah,
with
if that's the case, yeah.
Well, some of those for areas, regardless, you still have to abide by your setbacks.
Right,
So in a 30 by 100,
it's gonna be tough now.
that's
Right.
gonna cover more almost what you can do.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I think that's, is
Yeah.
that what we're looking at here, the 30, this is
Yeah, that's
30 by
30 by
100? So,
You know, and like I said, homes have and are being built on 3500s right now. And becomes an issue. We can talk about it again.
Yeah, so it's kind of gather info on. We're not talking yet about the examples with like multiplexes and percentages, right? Are we getting to that? Because,
Yeah, we are,
This would apply for it as well.
gotcha.
yeah. Okay, so at this point, we will leave the lot coverage percentage requirements as they are.
Correct.
Yeah.
Carol?
I really appreciate both the discussions on these topics. If I could I just read some of my examples about, I believe, negatives of increasing density? So, increasing the lot coverage would result in higher density. It impacts the quality of life, impacts the character of the neighborhood, impacts the character of the historic district, destroys landscaping with trees, shrubs, lawns, gardens, raspberry patches, etc. Reduces the space for snow storage and disposal, reduces light, air circulation, space for roof runoff, privacy, and quiet, reduces space for parking and storage. Parking minimums already do not account for extra vehicles, RVs, boats, snow machines, etc., which increases the use of public right-of-way for private parking, encroaches on neighboring properties and obstructs views. Higher density may also overburden infrastructure such as road and sewers and emergency services. And I wanted to summarize what the city has already done. P&Z and council have already reduced the minimum lot sizes from Phoenix South to 3,000 square feet, rezoned some R1 zones to OR and R3 to encourage higher density, approved CUPs for duplexes to be triplexes and triplexes to be fourplexes, approved CUP to allow bunkhouse and apartment on the same lot, reduced parking requirements for studio apartments and hotels, and improved infrastructure expansion and developer reimbursement program. Multifamily development in R3 and new R zoning districts are not yet built to capacity. There's no need to increase density and building heights, allow time for private developers to respond to market trends. So I think what you have decided, just keep it as it is to the course.
Okay. Those are both our topics, so I just want to verify with staff our recommendations that we're going to add a definition for long-term, and that we're going to keep the zoning square foot size the same as it is.
Right. And then we do have this little piece about the square footage requirements for multifamily dwellings.
Pardon me?
The square footage requirements for multifamily dwellings. So this is on page,
I thought we were finished.
32.
yeah, sorry.
No, we're not. That's good. Okay, one more.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Courtney.
So these requirements are found in the development requirements table notes. And that's on like the last page, I believe, of the packet. So currently, letter E says that a multifamily development, except studio apartments, with 3 or more units require a minimum of 9,000 square feet, and all of these districts require an additional 1,200 square feet per unit of 5 or more units. So what that means, to build a 4-plex, you have to have 9,000 square feet. To build a 5-plex, you have to have 10,200 square feet. A 6-plex, you have to have 11,400 square feet, and on and on. So this discussion topic comes from 2 individuals that have, had discussions with us about wanting to, build a multifamily dwelling on a lot that's less than 9,000 square feet, but they're limited by the code. And so we're bringing this to you to discuss, are there possibilities that that they have to develop these lots for multifamily dwellings, or are they stuck? So if you look at on the page with the graphics, I've written here, currently required in code, a duplex needs a minimum of 6,000 square feet, and then a 3 to 4-plex, 9,000, studio apartment plex. So, and this is any number of apartments. You could have 12 studio apartments. You could have 20. They only need 9,000 square feet. That does not change. But then with a 5-plex and more, you need that additional 1,200 square feet. But then a commercial building with any number of apartments has no minimum square foot. So this is currently what is allowed in code. So
the pictures are what's currently allowed in code.
no, the pictures are just examples of other options, like to get an idea. So like this first picture would be on like a 6,000 square foot lot, a 4-plex, with parking access from the alleyway, and then the second picture would be like a 7,800 square foot lot with parking access from the front of the main road. So these are just examples that I found of, smaller lots than what we currently allow in our code, and how a 4-plex would fit on that.
Okay, so these wouldn't comply with our code right now.
Right.
Okay.
They wouldn't. So this is just something to consider. Are there instances or places where multifamily dwelling could be built on a smaller lot? And remembering that currently someone can build a multifamily dwelling with commercial space in the bottom on any size of lot. But even if we don't change the lot size requirements, are there other requirements that maybe we need to add or modify around multifamily dwellings, such as parking, required storage space, required green space, that sort of thing, that we don't already have in code or could be added to.
Comments before I comment? Volunteer first.
I think what we got is working pretty well. If there's, definitely don't see it going to this tight, but if there's already, I guess they want to put in for a conditional use permit, like, hey, this is what we need to do, can we do it here? And then we can get it case by case basis, rather than open it up for everybody to get it all at once. So we might have a little better chance at not necessarily stopping it, but seeing how it's going before we just open it up.
They're still be required to get a conditional use permit because in our code for a multifamily dwelling, you have to get a conditional use permit. So the changing the lot size wouldn't change the fact that they need to get a conditional use permit.
Right now, they're not allowed to do it on this size.
Even
But-
with a CUP.
Even with a CUP.
Yeah.
But like Courtney said, there are zonings where they can. I think, like you said, we should keep it the same because there's just not enough room. You know, I know these are just diagrams. But if you look at the diagrams, there's no way that person can park in that fourth parking spot. That's like a Austin Powers turn to get in there.
Even when you look at it, if you have 4 apartments, you're gonna have more than 4 cars. And that's where you're gonna run into the problem. Because, like, I have 2 cars, but my 15-year-old is gonna get his license. He's gonna be 16, he's gonna get his license, he's gonna want his own car. You know what I mean? So you run into, and that's just a mother, a father, and a teenager, and you're looking at 3 vehicles. And then we already have nowhere to park. And then you add summertime on top of that.
Well,
I think that's-
then you write in parking needs to be what we need to make that, maybe there's no room for it,
There's
but
not for not on a lot like this. But I think the most important thing is that what Courtney said is there are zoning areas where you can do this. So I don't think we need to open it up, open up more areas
Yeah.
when this could be used for something else that the town needs as well. I mean, it's not just gonna be, oh, we can't have a fourplex, so we're gonna do nothing, you know?
well, that's
Yeah.
what's going on. There's a couple examples of that right now.
Yeah.
Waiting if it'll change. I mean, what's like a reasonable change? I mean, it sounds like nothing, but like, what's like the pushing point? Like, can you go duplex on 5,000? Would that make it possible, or is it they need something more significant that's just like, oh, it doesn't make sense at all? You know, like how close are these 6,000 on a duplex, 9,000 on a 3-4plex?
5,000 would be strange because most of our things are groups of 3.
Just throwing it out there, like,
Yeah.
you know, are these numbers close, or is it like, no, it's way too far? Like, it's not.
I don't know the specifics, but what they want versus the particular lots, because it hasn't been brought forward to me, or to us, I
Yeah,
should
yeah.
say. But like I said before, there are lots they can do it on. There's zoning areas where you can build that, and I think it's too tight. It doesn't allow for any sort of parking, snow removal, trash
Dumpster.
can removal. It basically just burdens the rest of the neighborhood with all of the extras that those people are gonna be bringing to that site. The street's gonna be full of parking.
We
And
go, yeah, sorry.
How many people do we want crammed into a spot, you know? It's a nice place to live here because it's a little bit open, there's a little bit of room. I'd hate to just start saying, well, we need people, so let's just cram them in like tuna cans, and then it just wouldn't be a very nice place to live.
Right, you know, there's a range there.
Yeah.
You don't want the tuna can. I mean, going up, right, that gives the footprint. I mean, it looks like these are 3 stories, as you're probably right to the, but you know, you take like a twoplex, let's say, that builds up, you know, so less square footage, and there is room for parking, there is green space.
True, but then you run into, well, that,
That might already fit on the 6,000, right?
no, you're looking at not total area, you're looking at footprint area, so
Yeah.
percent coverage. I think we should just leave it.
Yeah, the empty lot thing
I'll
is.
second that.
How did we get our current numbers.
Right.
That's what I want to understand.
Lots of work sessions.
From a long time ago.
Yeah, no, it isn't.
Yeah, I'm not sure how this.
They've been here for a long time, so I'm assuming that probably in the 60s and the 70s, people sat down and kind of decided, just like we are, how tight they wanted people to live and to enjoy the area around them.
Yeah.
And they figured that this gave them an ample parking, and this gave them ample room to breathe and things to put on the yard, and maybe, you know, you got that extra parking so you can put a boat or an extra car in there.
And they weren't dealing with the housing issues that we're dealing with now.
True, but Karen, also you're gonna be dealing with other issues that,
Yeah, and you're not saying that you can't build them, we're just saying not in this zone.
You gotta
Like,
stick
you
to
have
this.
Yeah,
yeah,
I hear you.
build a
just
regular
build a
home,
different zone.
a regular home with a family that has 4 or 5 people.
Yeah. These things can be changed and changed again, right? I know it's kind of difficult, it takes time. It's not like, oh, we changed it. Dang, shouldn't have changed it. You know, you just change it back.
It's a living.
Like Troy's
Yeah.
case about get some examples, right? You go one by one. When you change it, you get a couple examples and then suddenly.
If this is working, let's go ahead and allow it.
Right.
But
If
it's
this isn't
harder,
working, change it back and you see.
I think it'll be
One
harder
or two of these sneak in.
I think it would be harder to go back.
That's the thing.
Yeah. That's
It's
what I
like,
hear.
so you let people do it, and then all of a sudden, no, we changed our mind, never mind. Bad
Well, they
idea.
got to do it.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. You know, sorry,
wanna
bad
keep-
idea.
I just want to keep things nice for everybody. You know?
Yeah.
And I totally understand the housing crisis.
Right.
Like,
I mean,
I don't know if you know, I run Bayside, and there's 36, 37 units, and like I have people in my office every single day looking for housing. But to me, it just doesn't make sense. Like, I've lived in cities, I've lived where there was like row houses, and it just doesn't make sense. You're gonna lose that small town feel once you start, like you said, you know, it's like a tuna can.
We like the charming town we have. It seems to be working fairly well.
Besides the housing thing. But yeah.
I said fairly well. Nothing's perfect.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, then how about the commercial building deal, right?
Well, the commercial, if you build it on an auto commercial, you can do that outright because it's 0 lot line and no parking.
Gotcha. And those lots, we don't care as much about keeping it.
That's just the zoning on it.
Right.
That's, I don't know who did that. I think they should have parking, but that's not.
And it's not that you don't care, it's just that's how it is.
That's how it is.
Well, a lot of people come off the cruise ships and they don't have a vehicle at the moment. So a lot of their customers aren't coming in with vehicles. They're coming in foot. So to make them have 50 car spaces or parking spaces would be, like, it's nice to have the fish house if there was a parking space there.
Yeah, right?
But what's there works.
Carol?
Just a tiny correction, in Central Business District, it doesn't require parking,
Okay.
auto commercial does.
Oh, commercial does. Okay. My apologies.
And Central Business District is 100% lot coverage is allowed,
Okay.
which pushes everything into the street.
So we have areas where you could, if you acquired a lot, you could build this. Anyway, I think, let's just leave it.
But commercial buildings are gonna be, and you know, this is where my knowledge, which I'm building, forgive me, but commercial buildings are gonna not be in these zones that some of these duplex, 3, 4-plex, you know, right there in, where do commercial buildings typically land zone-wise?
Office residential, auto commercial, central business, and hardware commercial.
Okay, so different than kind of what we were getting at with this previous discussion of the duplex 3, 4, you know, because it's just like you have a small, commercial part is a small little thing, it's more of a plex, right, with just no minimum square footage.
Courtney, do you have an example, because you said that this is brought, like, about the multifamily dwellings. You said there was someone who has property that they want to build a multifamily on? Is that what's
Yeah,
been brought to you?
there's a lot for sale. Right now, it's, so you know where the annex building is, just right kitty corner. Then there's a building that's a short-term, well, has a number of apartments, and then the lot next to it is like a little wooden log cabin house. Anyway, that lot is for sale. And I think there's 2 lots. Right now, it looks like it's just 1 lot, but it's comprised of 2 lots, and one is a 3,000 square foot lot, and the other is like a 4,000, I think, or, anyway.
So you
So
have someone who wants to purchase
an
it,
individual wants to
and
purchase
they
it.
want to build a multifamily there.
But for it, yeah, but for it to be, you know,
I think that puts it in
advantageous to
better
them.
perspective, so you know, like, this is where the lot is, and this is where they want to build. Does it make sense to build?
right?
That
A
makes it
multifamily
make
there.
less sense because that area is
It's-
already extremely choked.
Yeah. It's already jam-packed. I think that makes, you know, it's easier for me to
Yeah.
look at and go, okay, here's a lot. Does it make sense to build a multifamily here, or is that just something that,
Yeah, specific examples are good.
yeah.
So yeah, if someone wanted to develop that property, they could put a commercial space and then however many apartments they can fit above it within the 34 feet.
In the zone it's in now, that would work. Okay.
Which is acceptable.
Full time.
Hold this one the way it is. Like I said, are we okay with that? No. Okay, we'll keep this.
Is anyone opposed to it? Does anyone,
I'm gathering information, I don't know.
I've spent the last couple of months just doing that. I just sit back and listen,
Yeah.
just kind of gather as much information as possible.
It seems like a chance to add housing, but, you know, I think change, like you pointed out, things work. So,
It's
just
one
trying
of
to
those
see.
Things work. It's
I'm just open to looking at it more, I guess, gathering
You could
information.
build a duplex there, right? You can't build a duplex on that one? Oh, no, because it's not 6,000.
Yeah.
You could do a commercial building with apartments above it.
Yeah.
That's what you could do.
Yep.
So
So you can make an
apartments still
office
could go.
or something, and then put apartments above it?
Yeah. I want it to be more than it's just working. I just want us to make sure that people get quality places to live in, where they have space to do things. Instead of just trying to build as much, as fast, as possible.
Right, that's,
To just, you
Yeah.
know, we'll run into a problem later down the road by
Right.
just trying
right.
to rush this.
I'm looking at the in-between, you know, maybe it's a lot closer to maintain space, green space, you know, that breathing room, you know, stay closer to that, but maybe there's like a little room, it's just what I'm looking for. You know,
Well,
town has a dense feel, I know, certain neighborhoods.
Certain neighborhoods,
Yeah,
yeah.
it has a range, and there are some nice areas in town, downtown, that do space out, and it's refreshing and important.
exactly. Okay,
Okay, so we'll bring back some long-term rental language,
please.
and these other items will be tabled until indefinitely.
Till some other point. Okay,
Okay,
and is that good? Do you need to run through anything else?
nope, that's everything.
Public?
Yeah.
Yeah. Carol, do you want to talk
Well,
about
I'd
anything?
just like to mention that supersizing is a lot of pressure. People will come to you again and again, they want to supersize their lots, and the commission usually caves in, which I'm really sorry to say. But you have to hold the line, you know, these supersized structures that they're asking for permission to build it bigger, you know, than what their lot size allows. And it just results in a lot of issues, and especially downtown, which I consider from the lagoon south, that's like downtown. And it's an area with historic trees and shrubs that make our town really special. And when a building comes in to supersize, the first thing that goes is these beautiful old crabapple trees. You don't see them anymore. The branches extend 20 feet on the side. They're just gone. And we've lost so much of our historic landscaping, and that will never get back. It seems that trees and shrubs just, they need space. So if you want to have that quality of life, you can't allow people to supersize their lots. And as downtown properties age, you have so many older homes that just aren't worth fixing up anymore. So you scrape them off, clear off all the vegetation, cut down all the trees, and you have a big ugly lot with a big supersized building on it. And it's really sad to me to see how much we've lost already. And so I hope that you're firm and keep that in mind, that of what we value for our quality of life. And require landscaping. If they're gonna wipe it all out, require that you put something back. But you gotta do it. And if you don't require it, they're definitely not gonna do it. So keep an eye on that if you will.
Yeah, so if I may, when it is time to demo a building, right, because there are times with these older buildings, how would you prefer that to be? Like redo the landscaping, save what you can, rather than just,
Well, if they don't come up for a CUP, you have no control. They own the property and they can just wipe it out.
right?
It's surprising how quickly you saw in that saltwater safari lot, you didn't require landscaping and they took everything out.
It's surprising that we don't require landscaping.
You can't.
Yeah, because
The
it's,
commission said, well, we can't do that, but you can.
yeah, because when I lived in Wyoming, it was mandatory. Like, you had to have X amount of trees in your front yard and X amount of bushes. Yeah.
You have to
It's
enforce
not
it.
wonderful when the deers come or, you know, the animals come and eat them, and then you're like,
But especially
there
sad
goes your tree.
is other communities like Homer and other communities, Anchorage, were wiped and their trees were just wiped out by the spruce bark beetle. And we're cutting down beautiful healthy trees that are 100 years old that could live 800 years or more. And we're just cutting them down. So you require it, in answer to your question, Joe, if you have a CUP before you, if it's possible, you see that some of these trees and landscaping shrubs are in the setback, ask that they maintain them in the setback. And then you can require a certain amount of green space, like put it back into green space with a lawn or shrubs, trees and shrubs. But you can require that instead of just a gravel wasteland.
Yeah, so leaving it up to the owner.
That would help mitigate the impact of that building on the surrounding neighborhood.
You can request it, but enforcing it is different.
Yeah.
I've requested it many times, not many, more than twice on CUPs, and they've never been done. They're just gravel where people park cars on, even though with the CUP requires them to have grass. Anyway, does
That's
anybody
it.
else have anything else to say before I adjourn this?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks.
Then I will adjourn this work session at 6:50.